Why does being questioned feel unstable? It happened at the meat market. The stall was small. One chopping block, one knife. The meat had already been laid out, cut into sections. A lot of people passed by every day. Some glanced once and kept walking. Some stopped to ask a few questions. That kind of scene was very common. Look at the meat, ask the price. If it feels right, buy it. If not, leave. I stood behind the chopping block, did not speak much. If someone asked, I answered. The prices were clear. The meat was already there. Sometimes people passing by would casually greet me, and many regular customers never even asked the price. They picked a piece, weighed it, paid, then turned around and left, without unnecessary words. That day, one man walked over, looked once, but did not immediately ask the price. He pressed the meat with his hand, then picked up a piece, held it near his nose, smelled it, looked at it repeatedly for a while, then suddenly said, "This pig, it was raised on feed, right?" The voice was not loud, it sounded casual, but the people nearby could hear it clearly, and once that sentence appeared, the air around us changed. People nearby who had been choosing meat briefly looked up, then lowered their heads again. Nobody responded, but their movements started becoming hesitant. I paused briefly, put down the knife in my hand, then started explaining, not simply denying it. I started pulling the conversation backward, explaining the difference between feed-raised pigs and mountain-raised pigs, explaining texture, color, taste, explaining how to tell the difference. Then I took out my phone, showed him photos and videos from when I bought the pigs, explaining how they were raised, what they were fed, where they came from, how long they had been raised. He barely responded, kept looking down at the meat, occasionally glanced at the photos on my phone. But my speaking speed started getting faster. The details started becoming more numerous. I pointed at the meat on the chopping block, piece by piece, kept explaining. In the end, the customer did not buy any meat. He left. Later, I started replaying my own behavior. Why had I become so determined to explain? Once that sentence appeared, I kept explaining, kept adding details, kept emphasizing things, kept pulling the conversation backward, as if I were trying to press that sentence back down. Little by little, that sentence did not stop there. Just before that, I stood behind the chopping block. People asked questions. I answered. People chose meat. I cut meat. That position had originally been stable, but once that sentence appeared, that stability started breaking apart. I was no longer simply the person selling meat. I became the person being doubted, the person who needed to be confirmed again. What I sold was mountain-raised pork, different from feed-raised pigs, and if that point was not handled, the meat could still continue selling. People could still continue coming, but that position had already started changing, and only later did I begin realizing something. Many times, people are no longer only explaining the event itself. What I was doing was constantly pulling myself back upward, trying not to fall downward, trying to return to that position again. And if that is true, then why must that position be maintained?